Within 10 minutes, Inspector Simpson and Detective Johnson were covering with the surprise Mr. Rogers. He was a small man with a funny little face and pale blue eyes. He was nervous and badly frightened. After 10 minutes, Inspector Simpson, it means Hasty, and the Detective Johnson, it means Blackie, were conversing with the surprised Mr. Rogers. Now, because the Mr. Rogers was very surprised about listening the talk by Hasty, and now Simpson and the Johnson was conversing with Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers was personalities was he was a very small man with very little face and his eyes pale blue. He was nervous and badly frightened. He was very nervous and already very frightened, because if anyone say to us that you are going to be in a problem, so everybody will be shocked. So in this condition, Mr. Rogers was very nervous and frightened. Inspector Simpson explained to Mr. Rogers the whole story of the briefcase. The story was true but a little changed. Now Mr. Simpson, it means Hasty, was telling the story of briefcase to Mr. Rogers. The story about the robbery in the bank and about the briefcase, the story was true, but now there was a little bit change in the story, because in that robbery, in the big robbery in the bank, the thieves were already Hasty and Blackie, but now they have changed a little bit in the story. Mr. Rogers was surprised but delighted. Now Mr. Rogers was surprised after hearing the story but also delighted. He accompanied Hasty to the cellar and together they dug up the briefcase. Now Mr. Rogers carried Miss Hasty, you can say accompanied Hasty, company देता है, and cellar तक, it means उस underground store room तक ले जाते हैं, and together they dug up the briefcase, because Hasty know where the briefcase, so say they dug up and got the briefcase. Hasty brought out to the living room and opened it. Now Hasty brought the briefcase to the living room and wanted to open it. He saw that it had not been touched, and then he closed it. Now he observed that no one had touched this briefcase, and now he closed this. And now Mr. Rogers, he announced in a most impressive and official manner. अब Mr. Rogers जो है वो एक announcement करते हैं very official manner में, official tone में. Johnson and I must run along. Johnson and I must run along. हमें भाग जाना चाहिए. The DGP, the Director General of Police, wants a report, a quick report. We can't wait. जो DGP हैं वो इस बारे में एक रिपोर्ट चाहते हैं. We can't wait and we can't wait. We have to catch the rest of the robbers. Now we have to catch the robbers of this robbery. However, I will keep in touch with you, Mr. Rogers. अब कहना है कि हमें ये ब्रीफकेस मिल गया है, बट अब हमें क्या करना है, हमें बाकी रॉबर्स को फाइंड आउट करना है, उनको कैच करना है, एंड अब हम आपके कांटेक्ट में बने रहेंगे. ये सब वो कह रहे हैं, जो जॉनसन है वो कह रहे हैं कि अब हम बने रहेंगे, यानी ब्लैक जो हेस्टी है यानी सिम्पसन कह रहे हैं. हेस्टी picked up the briefcase and walked to the door. Blackie followed him. Mr. Rogers bowed low and opened the door for them. Hasty अब briefcase को picked करता है. He was picking up the briefcase and wanted to go out of the house. So he was walking to the door. Blackie followed him. Blackie was following him. Mr. Rogers bowed low and opened the door. Now Mr. Rogers was going to open the door. They are three big strong men in police uniform were standing outside the door. Now as the Rogers opened the door, there were three big strong men in police uniform were standing outside the house. Here you can say outside the door. Come on boys. Mr. Rogers was pleasantly welcoming them. Come on boys, what does this mean? Mr. Rogers asked Hasty. Now Hasty was asking to Mr. Rogers that what's matter. It's quite simple, said Mr. Rogers. It just happens that I am the DGP. Now the Mr. Rogers was announcing, you can say now Mr. Rogers was informing that it's very simple, there is no matter. Now I want to tell you that you told me that DGP had ordered to you to keep in touch with me, but now I am saying you that I am the DGP. It means Mr. Rogers जो थे वही DGP थे, डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ पुलिस थे. एंड जब हेस्टी उनको कॉल करके बोलता है कि मिस्टर DGP ने उनको उनके कांटेक्ट में रहने के लिए बोला है, मिस्टर रॉजर्स तभी समझ गए थे कि ये कहीं ना कहीं कुछ ना कुछ प्रॉब्लम है. और जब वो उनके घर आए तो मिस्टर रॉजर्स को ये क्लियर हो गया था कि जो टू मैन है ये कोई ऑफिसर नहीं है, यही वह रॉबर्स हैं जिन्होंने बैंक में रॉबरी की है. इस तरह जो रॉबर्स थे वो पकड़े जाते हैं. तो देखिए इस स्टोरी में यही क्लियर होता है कि रॉन्ग हाउस इसका जो नाम रखा गया था वो यही था कि जब टू रॉबर्स रॉबरी करके भागते हैं और एक सेफ़ प्लेस चाहते हैं तो वो उस प्लेस पर पहुंच तो जाते हैं, लेकिन वो उनके लिए प्लेस सेफ़ नहीं था, क्योंकि वो एक ऐसी जगह पहुंच जाते हैं जहां उन्हें सबसे ज़्यादा डेंजर था, और वो जो घर था वो एक DGP का था और इसीलिए वो वहाँ पकड़े जाते हैं. सो आई होप स्टूडेंट्स यू हैव अंडरस्टूड द स्टोरी. थैंक यू एंड हैव अ